Hello, this is Mr. Pollicutt doing his individual oral presentation for English Standard Level IB. And the subject of my individual oral presentation today is the idea of romantic love in the novel Regeneration by Pat Barker. Specifically, I want to look at how whether we can call Prior's relationship with Sarah romantic, can it be described as love, and how does war affect their relationship? So actually what I'm doing is I'm looking at a three-part question, and the first thing that I need to do is to actually deconstruct the question in order to get to a deeper truth. We need to look initially at the idea of what is meant by romantic. The modern idea of romance involves one person's deep emotional desire to connect with another person. Often, in this modern idea, there is more emphasis on the emotions, especially as of love, intimacy, compassion, appreciation and general liking, rather than physical pleasure. But romance and romantic love, in the abstract sense of the term, is traditionally referred to as involving a mix of emotional and sexual desire for another person. So there's two different definitions, and given these two, can we say that either apply to Prior and Sarah in Regeneration? Well, certainly with the first definition, it seems not looking at the venue of their first meeting. The venue of their first meeting is romantically inauspicious. It's a cafe with, Barker writes, a hot, damp, dirty dishwasher, smelling air. Indeed, through the alliteration going on there, it's almost as if Barker wants to emphasize just how traditionally unromantic this setting is, transplanting it to not only the domestic but also a sordid, mundane world. Why does Barker do this? For me, perhaps she is trying to stress that following the horrors of war, traditional notions of romanticism are no longer appropriate or important. This hardly creates a particularly romantic image in the reader's mind. But having said that, is it unromantic? Perhaps again, Barker is portraying a more realistic, a more earthy version of love in a post-war world. One that doesn't require the aforementioned romantic tokenism. A love that actually, looking deeper, could be perceived as more honest, and therefore more romantic, because it doesn't require these glamorous surroundings. In fact, it has unglamorous surroundings. The second point about Sarah's role in these initial interactions is that Sarah challenges the assumption that women in the Edwardian period should be passive and demure. In fact, she is the one who instigates the conversation. She has the male trait in the early part of the 20th century of being a very adept drinker. Barker writes how Prior was startled at the rate in which she knocked them back. And she's also got a very cynical opinion about love. Love for a man, she says, no. So it seems that we can't label the first definition of romantic onto Prior and Sarah. But, as aforementioned again, romantic love does include the notion of sexual desire. And very soon we can clearly see that this is possibly an integral part of Prior and Sarah's relationship. And we see this in their early encounter when they go to the decidedly unprepossessing setting of the graveyard. Romance here seems to be secondary to sexual desire. The omniscient narrator tells us that Prior, in fact, would have preferred not even to know her name, and that Sarah is actually pulling away from him, knowing that he only seeks sexual gratification. So superficially it seems that this is purely sexual and carnal. But on a deeper level, looking more closely, it's as if Barker hints at the potential of a deeper connection, one that's not contingent simply on carnality. She includes the apparently incongruous information that inscribed on the tombstone the pair are perched upon is written, "Beloved," but everything else was covered in lichen or crumbled away. This vivid image, I think, can be seen as metaphorical for the love that Prior and Sarah will have. It's concealed, it's damaged, but it's present nonetheless. Similarly, when escorting Sarah to her lodgings, carnality seems to have given way temporarily for tenderness, which foreshadows their moments later on in the novel. Barker writes how how Sarah lowered her head until his forehead rested on hers. And this is obviously a gentle, in the first sense of the word, traditionally romantic gesture, which it belies the nature of their early encounter. However, the encouraging signs at the end of their first meeting seem to have come to a very abrupt halt in the novel. Prior's late-night excursions lead him to being punished immediately by the VADs and by Rivers, and when he can't meet up with Sarah for their arranged dates, we see romance being further compromised by Sarah's irritated yet largely apathetic response, "Bugger him, why didn't he show up?" But looking at notions of romance in literature, traditional romance notions of literature, one could see this as making their relationship actually more traditionally romantic, in as much as all romantic heroes have to overcome obstacles, tribulations that come in their path in order to emerge out the other side as a stronger romantic unit, because they've gone through these travails and they've conquered them.